Well, let me tell you a little something about me. When it's Saturday night, I need to blow off some steam. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, I've been rolling in since the clock came Monday morning. From the end of the week, I'm bound to blow. We's walking to the honky tonk like a pack of wolves now. Order of a round of drops and it's away we go.
Well, good morning. We're going to be starting our Equipment Talk podcast for IRAY Companies. And we're ready. My name is Ray Henry from IRAY Companies.
Troy Henry from Brad Software.
Logan from IRAY Companies and Brad Software.
Jordan from IRAY Companies and Brad Software.
All right.
And what's the first thing on the list?
Well, since we got to talk about the auction last, we can bring up autonomous heavy equipment.
Autonomous.
Heavy equipment, huh?
It's a big word, you know.
Yeah.
And it's actually what's coming to play with the whole industry is autonomous. What does that mean? Autonomous means that you don't have to have a guy sitting in a seat, right?
Yep.
So you don't have to have no insurance on him. You don't have to have a 401k for him. You don't have to have a lot of things for him. But you know the problem is? It's not that they don't want the people in the seat. What's happening?
They want the job done right.
No, the workforce is very small. And
Money.
it's getting less and less. It is about money, but it isn't. Because the thing is that if you turn around, if you look at it, they're willing to put people on to get them into their equipment. But what's happening is there's less and less equipment operators because of the era that we're in, and they're not really, those outdoorsy working with dad or grandpa or anything else, because these big corporations that have taken over the industry have been, they've been actually bringing people in there trained through different colleges and that kind of thing, and it's taken away the workforce. And in a lot of places, look at restaurants or something like that. We won't have to get off that subject, but it's people. We got a higher sign in our yard. You know what I mean? Why? Because we need some people. There's getting less and less people that are not only qualified but are willing to take on the position that are needed.
Well, I seen like somewhere in Arizona, there's a McDonald's there that doesn't have a single cashier.
How does it work?
Well, it's just
They just have robot cooks, and then they have robot cashiers.
Well, I didn't know about the robot cooks, but I knew about the kiosks. There's
kiosks.
automation all over the industry.
This was before kiosks.
And you got to ask yourself, is it going to be replacing jobs?
Well, it has
Take it like even the trucks on the road, like how they're trying to get self-driving trucks, just like we've got self-driving cars.
And to be honest with you, they're going to take over jobs. Because there's nobody to fill them jobs anyhow, so someone's going to take that job, right?
Like a computer.
So,
Well, you need someone to program that computer, and
So we'll still have jobs.
well, you're in a
It's that
different
computer.
era, and you're in a job market. The job market you're talking about is, moving forward into not only programming these autonomous vehicles, but also programming programs that will actually eliminate positions that are needed to do receipts and billings and emails and all these things that need to be done. But you know what? You don't have to have somebody typing up and doing each one individually. You're going to be programming a program that basically send, okay, check it. One person can do it instead of four.
I seen somewhere it's like production, like mass production on this sort of stuff for like CAT and Komatsu is like around 2023 to 2024. So it's coming up quick.
They're saying the mass production on autonomous?
Komatsu has, we've talked about the little mini digger excavator that
Yep.
they used.
Mini excavator?
Partnered with Honda. But Komatsu actually has a bigger one, just like a, not super small, but we've had one here before.
So you're talking like a mini excavator?
Yeah, they have one that's electric. It works. They make them, they produce them. You can buy them.
Well, they're not much different than electric forklift, right? I mean, your pumps, you got a pump, you got a drive motor, you got a pump, and you got something to run it. Kind of, if it's gas engine or if it's electric, they're both engines basically, or motors, and they run just differently. That's all. I mean, they're the same but different. So, I don't know that it does that much more for weight because of batteries. That might be a different deal, and storage, but at the same time, it comes down to charging, right?
So we're still gonna need that diesel so we can charge them then.
Well, you're going to have a grid somewheres, and if you're out in the country somewheres, you're probably going to have yourself something that either has an engine to charge because, fuel and moving it out there where it's at because of the location without having a power box there to plug into. You're going to have something. And then
Like how a locomotive works.
a locomotive works, yes, because it has a diesel engine that runs a generator that runs basically the electric motors that run the train.
Well, I was actually doing a little research, and in Canada, they're trying to push the whole concept of electric vehicles. The problem is that none of their power grids are strong enough to be able to charge all of those vehicles. And I have a feeling we're going to run into the same problem here, because you have to, in order to get those big autonomous machines to be able to run. I mean, you charge at what is it, 100 over 100 watts, I believe, is what their recharge is. So I mean, the amps, most houses can't facilitate it. You'd have to pump in a higher grid number, and I mean, if we do that to everybody, that's creating issues.
There's still other ways of doing it, and that's having something that holds the power, so you're slowly trickle charging, and then you're using that to transfer the power. So they do have inverters, and inverters basically hold power, so you don't need as much power when you're pulling power. And it also, they're also talking about some of the homes that you have that you could set in and have a grid at home, basically, where you have solar panels, or if you have wind energy, or if you're going to have another backup resource for your power. So there's a lot of alternatives. It just depends on which one's going to be the most economical, and then how much payoff time does it have to really make itself useful.
And also how much more complicated it will be to work on those types of equipment, because it's going to require a lot of knowledge, even going from a gas engine or diesel engine to an electric engine, or electric motors and things like that. And that kind of goes hand in hand with well, are the companies going to let people even work on the different pieces of equipment and things like that are electric powered or autonomous, and all that proprietary software and everything that goes into making those big vehicles. It's I think it kind of gets into the old topic of John Deere not letting people work on their own equipment and
Used to.
things like that. Yeah, used to at least.
Well, and let's just face it. We're in a throwaway society. Okay, something doesn't work, they're going to charge you enough that basically, if it doesn't work, just either we'll put it somewhere, we'll get it picked up and get it back, and we'll rebuild it or whatever, or what's going to happen? They'll just send you a new one, and then you have somebody rehook it up. And as things wear out or they go down, they're going to know the wear cycle on things. I mean, just think back when GE bought out this German company that made light bulbs. They said, "How long do your light bulbs last?" They said, "Forever." They said, "Well, that ain't going to work. We need them to wear out after about 2,000 hours, so that way you're not, number one, we can resell them light bulbs, right?" And that's why, when you look at electric vehicle or electric unit itself, typically your wearable parts are 1/10 of a gas-powered or a diesel-powered unit. And why? Because you have way less moving parts. I mean, you got a shaft on electric, right? And that turns, and that's the only thing moving there that's running that power for you. You're running off of a battery. Is there anything moving in a battery? No. And you have some solenoids. Those are going to move, those are movable parts. But you're taking away all that extra movable parts, because you got to face it. An engine is nothing more, gas or diesel is nothing more than a pump. It's a pump. It pumps air in and out. That's what it does. And what fires that air in and out to make the power is going to be the fuel. So it's pretty simple.
Yeah.
But it's more complicated than if you would have electric. Electric is basically a lot more simple.
Less maintenance.
Also,
Less maintenance, cost-wise too. You can take your cost factors and drop them right down. The only thing that you have for cost factors and something like that is that batteries, okay?
yeah, that battery's expensive.
Well, they can be, but if they're made properly or if we figure some type of it's power, right? So if you could figure a power grid that doesn't take the energy that a battery would or something else, and it could be a static power, then it could change the whole thing too. So we don't know what kind of power we're going to have. So down the world with all these things that are happening with, when you start talking like warp drives and all this type of other energy that you're changing the basically the functionality, how it works, it's phenomenal. I mean, your mind, if you looked at it and thought about it, you go, yeah, these guys, now this is rocket science, right?
Literal rocket
That was
science.
literally rocket science.
Yeah. And literally, you look at NASA, they haven't moved forward in, years of what Tesla did with SpaceX and stuff. Save the rocket, right? Nobody else did that. They'd let them go. So it cost them way too much every time they took off. And he just, those few things. And that's what's happening with the world. It's moving faster. And it's going to move faster yet. Because now, what is they saying about electric vehicles? How many electric vehicles do they want in the United States by a certain time? Well, I know California
They
is the
practically
highest.
want to replace all of
Yeah, I
the
know.
vehicles
Like,
with electric
I
vehicles.
think like Dodge was given a deadline. I know this kind of
Wasn't it 37?
in heavy equipment, but it was a deadline to be
Generally set
pure
35.
pure EV by like 2023, I think, or 2022.
I thought it was 2026 or something like that.
Maybe it was something like that. I'd have to look it up.
Yeah, why don't you look it up? Let's give them some facts.
Yeah, Evan, pull that one up.
So
I thought there was a federal mandate by like 35.
I think it is. They gave enough time because GM hasn't made the mark yet. Neither is Ford. They've made some stuff, but they've not made the mark.
Toyota's behind, Volkswagen's behind. Most of them are behind.
They're all behind because what they're doing is they're selling what sells, right? And they're producing what sells because they have to take care of the supply and demand. And right now we're all this volume is going down in the new stuff because they're blaming it on chips, they're blaming it on this and blaming it on that. But I think they're doing is they're saying we need time. What do we need time for? We need time to retrofit and make things work in the electric world so we can back out of the gas world or diesel world.
Yeah, because I don't think anybody can dispute the fact that electric vehicles and electric whatever are a little better than, gas-powered things just because, at the end of the day, the electricity is coming from somewhere, whether it's a power plant or whatever, but even for maintenance purposes and just, things that regular people have to do with their regular vehicles or even heavy equipment, it takes a lot of that headache out of it and allows you to just do what you got to do, whether it's driving to wherever you got to go or doing a job you got to do. And
2024.
yeah, the year's 2024, by the
It
way.
is.
Yeah.
Wow. That's going to be a tough mark for them, I'll guarantee it.
Oh, there's no way that they'll replace all that stuff by
Well,
then.
just think if they're telling you right out, hey, you got to get rid of your vehicles. You know what's going to happen? The government's going to say, hey, we'll buy your vehicles, but we're going to crush them. We're going to give you guys.
This wasn't this is Stellantis, the big people that own Dodge. We're giving Dodge a deadline. Hey, 2024, we're not building any
Yeah, that's just Dodge.
vehicles. Or
Dodge said that to them?
that's what Stellantis said to Dodge. They own Dodge.
Wow. There's some big words there.
Yeah, well, I would say that before any government entity comes down and does that, I'd say that the manufacturers are going to push for it first, and then slowly and surely all the manufacturers are going to try to switch over and make people start using electric vehicles.
I think with these EV companies, they know it's going to have to be a slow change before.
Same thing, but the same thing with the equipment industry. Like, they're going to do the same thing. Like,
Well, they're already doing it. You take a
slowly-
Caterpillar, the big dozers, look at the big off-road trucks. They're already, they're autonomous, and they're running with, electric. So yeah, they're doing it, so it's not like that they're not. And a lot of times right now, that we don't have the resources to plug in and to do that. They're putting big generators out there, so you back up, you hook up, and maybe it's running a crusher or something. They'll switch it over and run that truck for half an hour or 45 minutes and charge that battery up and put her back on and go again.
well, the thing I like personally about electric anything is the consistency, like versus a gas-powered car or gas-powered anything or heavy equipment, diesel-powered this, diesel-powered that. The electric motors and electric engines, they can put out more power. They can put consistent power out. But it's just, that's the limit, is like, oh, well, what happens when you run out of electricity? Because with diesel and gas, that's the benefit. You could just fill the tank back up and then you're good to go. But with electricity, if you don't have electricity to charge it, or even do what the locomotives do, where they have a diesel engine or a gas engine powering a generator that's powering electric motors, it's just kind of, that's a phasey problem that still needs to be figured out, because a lot of places, like, even though there's Tesla's got chargers all across the country, heavy equipment operators don't have Tesla chargers to go hook up to at job sites and stuff like that.
You have to keep in mind that, just like I was saying, is that they're going to need a backup generator, period.
Yeah.
If you're not running off the grid and you're not putting it into batteries there, or some type of an inverter for the charging capabilities, you're going to have some kind of a alternative fuel to fire up and turn it on as a charger to charge that unit up. So
I don't know. I think it's this whole thing is kind of a double-edged sword, because I've got my little red car, seeing as I can't say any official names, but it runs on diesel. I can make 600 miles on a trip. Takes me another minute and a half to fill, and I am back on the road.
That red car's a diesel?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
You're lying.
There's turbo diesel bugs, right?
hey, I went and I had a
You're lying. There's no way that thing is a diesel. That's just crazy to me.
Yeah. I get between 600 and 650 miles on a straight trip. So that means that I guess if your
miles
average
a gallon you get.
depends how I'm driving it. But I'm usually more
can you get if
geared
you don't
towards
kick into it?
I'm usually more geared towards mileage, so I'm in the mid 50s.
I had this. Well, Ford put out
And
back.
I could get that vehicle to raise all the way to the mid 70s and higher.
Wow. I had actually a little Ford vehicle that was one of them little escorts, kind of a Tempo Topaz kind of a deal. Mercury made a Topaz, and that was diesel. 11 gallons of fuel, and had a Perkins diesel in it with a 5-speed transmission. I could average, and that was even going to California, I averaged 54 miles to the gallon. And I told the family that was with me at the time, members, I said, we're not stopping to go to the bathroom until we get fuel.
And then he laughed to himself.
Because there was no stopping for fuel.
Well,
We'll stop tomorrow, boys. Don't pee yourself.
yeah. I mean, this thing literally will just go and go and go and go and go. I changed my mind about stopping for fuel. I said, no, we'll stop in between when we're halfway. Okay.
So is it the same deal with heavy equipment then? Like it has a lot of fuel efficiency?
Well, depending upon their emissions, you know what I mean? There's different types of builds for injectors that put that fuel into your cylinders, and they can either overload your cylinders and still give you power, but it'll smoke more, you know what I mean? Or they can make it efficient, and you can get better efficiency. Some motors, and I say motors because they're designed differently, the way the duration of the cam lets the exhaust out and the air is intake in, and their duration will turn up or down your power as well through the way it's designed, from valving and cams and pistons and so on and so forth. Well, if you turn that, so you got your rev, that's what you need for a pump, right? You don't necessarily need your power rev, you just need your rev, and you can run an excavator and everything else, no problem, or a skid steer, and it will bring your fuel efficiency considerably less than you would if you had everything turned up. So you're really pushing hard, and she's going to smoke.
I think the biggest reason they use diesel, right, is just because they're so heavy, and the diesel engines can handle that better
The
than
torque produced
Well,
on the low end.
Yeah, it comes down to torque, but what happens is it's just like your air intake, okay? If you put your hand in front of a gas engine with air intake on, let's say, like a 350 size, it wouldn't suck your hand in. You'd choke your engine out somewhat. You follow me?
Yeah.
So if you do it on a diesel, it'll tear the skin off your hand.
You might lose your hand might go in there.
Yeah. I mean, that's how much more vacuum it has on a diesel engine, but it's got that much more power as well. Because you have to remember something. In fuel, you start talking about fuel, and this is kind of, we're getting into a little deep here, but
Going down the rabbit hole.
We're on that trail.
you take a low octane, but higher BTU fuel, and that would be, let's say diesel, for example. The higher the power in diesel is the bigger the number. So number one fuel will run in the winter because it's thin enough. It's really, it's thinned. You take a number 5 fuel, you couldn't hardly, it'd be like grease almost in the middle of the winter, right? So, but which one has more power? Number 5 fuel has more power than number 1. It will last longer, number 5 will, than number 1.
The heat generated by number 5 is higher and more consistent. A diesel motor needs that heat.
Well, it's a combustion. So combustion means there's no spark plug in it. It does it by combustion. So it pushes, pressure is heat, pressure is your combustion. So once it hits a certain pressure point, it'll blow. And that's when your pistons go down. So that's the way a diesel works. But they're more complicated than electric, yes.
So when you talk about diesel engine, what's a glow plug?
The glow plug is to heat the cylinder up so when she comes to that compression, it doesn't take as much compression as it does when it's cold.
I see.
So for the most part, glow plugs are really only used when it's cold outside.
I see.
Yeah.
Because of your low octane in the fuel, right? So it's not as thin, so it heavier. And by the way, the only thing that really uses number 5 fuel is trains would, airplanes would. Did you know airplanes run off diesel fuel?
I thought it was jet fuel.
Jet fuel's base, I believe, is diesel.
Yeah. And it's the way it sprays it in. Because an air-fuel ratio is done by so many parts air, so many part fuel, okay? So air-fuel ratio, if it was 15 to 1, so you got 15 parts to 1 air, okay?
It's a lot of
Or 15 air to 1 part of fuel. And that's your support of your combustion. A lot of people don't think about it. I mean, even just like right now, it's snowing or raining out, right? So if you think about snow or rain, how much percent of humidity is in the air? Percent.
40 to 50.
Probably close to 100 if it's raining.
Oh, yeah.
So if you were at 100% humidity in the air, just think about if you were 100% fuel in the air in this area right here, because that's the area you're talking about. 100% fuel would be plumb full, right?
Well, you'd have no
But it could be if you did a complete, what we call a air-fuel mixture, it would be dry because fuel will not drop out of suspension if it's dried in the air. Like right now, the air with the water in it it's dry. I mean, your hands they're not dry, but they're wet, right? I mean, but they're not sopping wet. So the air fuel is the same way for an engine as it is for the air that you're sitting outside.
I see.
Different deal, right?
We didn't do so good on staying on topic. We'll try better next time.
I think we're perfectly on topic. Tangents are not going off
that's
topic.
right. That's right. I apologize.
So, no, I think that, the Caterpillar, I just seen, they had a bigger one. It was I believe a D9. That one, it had electric drive motors for the tracks. So, it's got more battery in it, right? And then it also has a diesel engine, but instead of going from let's say a 6-cylinder diesel, they went down to a 4-cylinder diesel. So they don't need nowhere near the power to generate the power to the batteries. And that right there tells you that, it's like anything else. If you take the power off and you put load on a generator, what does it do? You'll see it smoke a little bit, and it turns up the power, right? And that's what happens at times when you have an inverter in there, just like on a generator. If you had a generator outside that you started up and it's got an inverter on it, and you plug into it and you turn on a saw or a drill or whatever you're doing, and it starts pulling from it, with an inverter, you won't get that rev up like you would on a non-inverter generator. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because you're getting more pull because you're doing a straight juice drive from the motor to the outlet. There is no battery to hold the power. So when you're charging a battery, the battery has an inverter that takes the power off the battery to the outlet to the tool.
Yeah, I think it would if you think about it, actually makes things more efficient because, like, even if you had a diesel engine and a generator versus having a V12 diesel engine and no generator.
It kind of reminds me of like a hybrid.
Yeah, it's like a Prius. It's
Yeah.
almost like a Prius dozer.
In a way, you're exactly right. And you know,
I don't think cat fans would appreciate
No,
that
probably
comparison very much.
Well, they're going to have to deal with it. It's science, baby.
yeah, but
right,
some of the stuff, you know, you start talking like a D11.
It's a
A
big
D11 is
machine, holy moly.
huge. I mean, you start talking D11T. I mean, the cab on it looks like, well, if you looked at this one, you know, as a dozer and a D11T, the cab would look like just about that small on there compared to this cab here. Because the unit's so much bigger, you don't need that big of a cab on it. And now just think if they went autonomous with it. Don't even need a cab up on top anymore, do you? Just put that baby right on there and go, go, go. So, and I think that, you know, when they start running autonomous, I think it's, you know, guys like you and you that basically start the programming. Hey, I can run this with my phone.
Yeah.
As long as I have the,
Or sit at home on a computer simulator thing where you're running everything from some joysticks on the computer.
It'd be a bad day if somebody hacked your system.
well, it'd be a bad day if you had somebody that built the system that could be hacked, right?
It'd be a bad day if it happened in general.
Well, no, because when they do something like that, it shuts down, and then you just do is revert into a new administration to go into it into a different program. I mean, it wouldn't be the end of the world, and somebody's going to sit there and hack on one guy's little deal. They're like, really? It's not like you're going to have a motherboard of 10,000 units that you're running off from, like we do some of these websites and stuff like this, right?
Who knows, really? I mean, like, you never know. Cat could make their systems where it's like some like centralized system that goes through them, and it could be a whirlwind of problems.
Something like the security system problems. I mean, I would never hope for anything like that, and I hope that it runs smoothly. Don't get me wrong; I don't mean to project that sort of mentality into anybody's head.
Oh, you have to think about it, though.
But I just mean that it's
Well,
a
you have-
thought, especially when you go with everything and everything's software. So that's a risk you run with software.
Yeah. And security is never an off and on switch. So, I mean, it's foolhardy for any company to think that they're impenetrable. You know, there's certain measures you can take to prevent and mitigate, as we call it, problems, but you can never be 100% sure.
But, you know, I really see it as, you know, having a job shack pulled out to the site, and you have maybe 6 monitors on it, you know, and you can have
It's all a localized system.
right, it'd be localized, and then you'd have it mapped out just like you would a game or something, and it would be all mapped out, because right now they're doing that anyways with GPS and everything, right? So they lay that mapping right into your computer. You would push and say, okay, I want this to go up to here and then stay here for so many until it feels the load. Once it feels that load, it'll take off and go and dump it over there. Once it dumps that load, then it'll come on back. And it could go forward or backwards, so, you know, it maybe wouldn't turn around. It would just go reverse, right? So that way you're losing time, you know, just like kind of the deal like UPS did. I watched that deal, and I talked to them, and I said, they always dropped off to the right. And I said, why do you guys do that? They said, because you're crossing traffic to the left, you're losing time. Time is money. Time's money, right?
That's right.
So every time they took off, they would take to the right, and they would pull off, and they would do their, their deliveries. So it was kind of cool the way they did their routing and everything else. And I think I look at it the same way that, you know, when you're running a dozer or loader or excavator or whatever you're doing, and you're putting it in a job site, you know, you got the same process and procedures, but now it's run by a program, right?
And you kind of
Highly
cut the human error. You cut human error out of it, too.
As long as you got a good programmer.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah, well, computers only do what they're told. So,
Again, the programmer.
yeah. Or even, I mean, like, if you think about it, though, if the programmer or somebody makes a program that lets, like, a architect put in their plans or something similar, where it's like the program just, you're telling it what to do. And if you say, grade it -6 feet, or I don't even know how that shit works, but I'm sorry. You're going to have to bleep that one, Evan.
No,
But,
it's all right.
you know, if you have a system that accepts like a architect's inputs, and it's like, okay, you know, make it a specific whatever, and they mess up, you know, there's still a little bit of human error in there, but instead of it being like multiple sets of human error, if you had 4 different operators doing 4 different things, and they could each potentially make a problem or whatever, or even have checks and balances built into it. And I mean, there's a lot of things to be talked about in that world, I think, but all in all, I think it cuts a lot of the human error out of it and makes things more reliable.
Cat and Komatsu and all these heavy equipment companies come out with their own app so you can tell it what to do?
It would be standardized for sure. I mean,
Or do you buy one for a specific purpose?
Well, here's the thing is there's like, right now, there's a couple different types of GPS systems, right? Mm-hmm. It's gonna be like that. So you can actually do is put that program, whatever program you're used to. So let's say that they sell a program, it's called a Tremble. So if you have that as a GPS system, you would have your own program and you would run it on that particular piece of equipment that you're going to get. Doesn't matter if it's CAT or Komatsu or Daewoo or any of the other ones. It doesn't matter the piece of equipment. It's going to matter the program that you're running on the piece of equipment,
GPS manufacturer.
because they're going to be doing the same thing. So that would be it in a nutshell, I would say.
well,
So you guys want to talk a little bit?
64 million?
what?
That 64 million?
What? The 64 million what?
That, built robotics,
I
64
mean, it's
million.
basically what we just talked about for 20 minutes.
Yeah, but we didn't talk about these people specifically. 64 million.
Who's 64 million?
That built robotics.
Oh, you mean the money they allocate towards building robotics? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, the company's name is Built, and they're the ones that got funded.
Company's name is Built, but they got $64 million allocated to them to build a robotic attachable, right,
Yeah.
to a common type excavator or dozer or
An
loader.
auto drive box.
They're called an auto drive. Wow.
Or autopilot box is essentially what it is.
Wow. So you mean to tell me that,
Show them the picture.
He's seen it.
so do we know what kind of money it takes per unit now? But is the 64 million to build a bunch of them? Is that kind of the
I
deal?
think the
Research and
64
development.
Yeah, it's just R&D.
Wow. Boy, guys, wouldn't you like to have 64 million to throw in R&D, huh?
Yeah.
That'd be phenomenal.
300 programmers make a big difference.
300. We keep the
Maybe
64 million.
500.
We just only need 3, 4, 5.
It's specifically for that cap model. Is what
Yeah.
these are
So,
for.
well, I mean, just like us, we sell equipment, right? And we had an auction yesterday, and in doing that, we, actually the market's high right now for used equipment because the new stuff, they're not getting the chips, they're not getting the manufacturers to produce the units. So what happens to the used units? They go up in value. It's called supply and demand. If your supply is down here, your demand for it is here, your used prices are going to go up as well. And that's what's happened right now. The used prices on used equipment that typically, I'm going to go back to this one example. It's pretty simple, is that, right now the demand, we had a 972H wheel loader. You can look that up if you want to. And in the United States, those with 17,000 to 21,000 hours on them, that was the range that we had these last three of them in our auction. And that was at auction too. They actually brought, the market on them was like between 50 and 60 grand, okay? And that's what I told the guys. I said 50 to 60 grand, that's been the market on them, so that's kind of where the United States market is, right? Well, because of our programming, and we ditched it out to the global market, we found there was three people that got on that wanted to bid on these 972Hs. And the three people that wanted to, besides the other hundreds that wanted to in the United States, were from another three different countries. And over in that Egypt and Saudi Arabia and all in those type areas.
Yeah, they're worth a lot more out there.
Well, we found that out, we did. So, and I'll just say it this way. The cheapest one went for $90,500, and the most expensive one on those three, remember there's 17,000 to 21,000 hours on them, went to $96,500. Now, they still had to pay a buyer's premium, which is 5% on them, and they have to ship them completely across the world over there. So,
Atlantic.
yeah, I mean, unreal. They got to get across the world,
They must really need that equipment.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what I'm saying is that this world, if you think it's huge, it's not really that huge. I mean, because look what they're buying from. I mean, this is we're in a pretty royal area, aren't we, out here?
No.
I mean, we're not sitting in a downtown big city, you know,
On a
twin
shipping
cities or
port.
something, in a shipping port. No,
No.
we're out in the country. We're way out there. But, you know, we have more safety here because we don't have everybody coming in from that don't know anything or that want to steal something or whatever. And hopefully they don't. I mean, it's not everywhere they do that, of course, but it happens, right?
People steal.
People do. But, you know, that's been our blessing as far as, you know, with the used equipment world where it's been going up because of supply and demand.
Isn't that why you guys quit selling like tractors and stuff? People were stealing the wires out of them.
Tractors.
Yeah, like you know, big John Deere tractors and.
No?
No.
No. Matter of fact, we went from everybody bringing their equipment here and us running across a ramp, a viewing ramp, and people seeing it and bidding on it. We have a auctioneer, you know, over the top, and we got ringmen that are down over the side that are basically, you know, taking bids. We went completely to a simulcast where you can consign from anywhere in the world, and you can also buy from anywhere in the
Different
world.
states and everything.
Yeah, in different states, and it's been phenomenal because it's made things easier for everybody. We do have a process and procedure, you know, in doing that, of course. So we protect buyers and our sellers. So and it's worked. It's worked well. But
How do you think like electric heavy equipment's going to affect the auction industry?
well, I always put it this way, that you know, if you look back at the Egyptians, they were selling you know, goods off back then, you know, that might have been the royalty, you know, things that got sold off, but they kept it within royalty, so they sold it off. Well, we're in the equipment world, so I mean, we don't call ourselves royalty, but we kind of like to, you know. But we're handling the big equipment. We know the people that use the equipment. We understand the people when it comes to their abilities of what they can or can't do or what they will or won't do. So I'm going to say that if a piece of equipment lasts longer and they're still going to have people that maybe retire or people that maybe pass away, you know, or somebody that, you know, sells the business out and they don't want to use this type of equipment. And we're the resource when it comes to that. So are we going to have a problem with that? I'm going to say no.
I think
Just more expensive items.
Well,
Yeah.
they may be or maybe not. You know, they might even be cheaper because they might be able to make them more reasonable or whatever. Who knows? Time will tell.
yeah, I was just thinking, like, I wonder if it's gonna go well with you know, the community, like the heavy equipment.
The operator community.
Yeah,
I have a feeling there's going to be a lot, well, throwing them out of the seats. I got a feeling there's going to be some rejections. You're going to have arguments that a computer can't anticipate what a human being can. A human being can do things with a machine that a computer just, it doesn't have thought patterns necessarily. I mean, don't get me wrong, software can absolutely get rhythms and different things like that, but you'll hear that. You'll hear the arguments.
like the Tesla in the semi incident. I don't know if you guys seen that.
Oh yeah, replacing Holland jobs. Or what?
No,
Or
there was
it
a
crashed into
semi
something.
that was flipped over, and the Tesla didn't stop. It just smoked the trailer. 'Cause it wasn't used to seeing a trailer flipped over on the highway.
Yeah.
So the sensors weren't reacting.
Yeah, because it's never seen it before.
Oh, well, you know, you're going to get some of that in learning, you know. I mean, it's no different. You getting up and starting to run, you know, with your feet. You're going to, have you seen anybody else crash into stuff didn't have a Tesla?
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably more so than you're going to find with the Tesla deal. You know, they're going to have more safety features on them than you're going to have on a regular vehicle, right?
Yeah.
So, you know,
Even when you fall asleep and it's oh, I'm going around a curve and I'm falling asleep. Oh, well, it's just gonna.
It's kind of going the
Gonna
same
follow
way.
ya.
What happens? I mean, not that truck drivers would ever look at their phones or anything, because I know that people that drive regular vehicles never look at their phones, but no more rumble strips.
yeah, I think that, you know, when it comes down to that, you're still going to have fatalities. And, you know, if you got it all autonomous, how many fatalities are going to have? You're going to have crashes, but you're going to have fatalities? No. You're not going to be in the vehicle. And you're talking about the people with semi drivers or truck drivers, just getting less and less of them, you know. And, you know, you're going to have some that say, hey, I want to drive. Well, go in and drive. I mean,
And also, the computer isn't going to get a lead foot out of nowhere and want to start passing. It's just going to go at a nice, consistent pace as it's supposed to, and just go down the road.
well, you might have to turn her up a little bit and have an express lane or something, because some of them semis will do 200 mile an hour, and if you don't have, and if you got good visual on it and everything else, and nobody else is in the lane, you'd probably be okay.
You got deadline of 4 hours. You start going
Computer-
100 right now.
The computer's like, I
think
need to go fast.
Finally created semis that can operate on the Autobahn without slowing everybody down. That's a good thing.
But the other thing you got to think about it is that, why do they put speed limits on vehicles or in town or anything else? It's because people are crossing, or people are in the area. You're endangering people. So if you get people out of the equation, what's going to happen then?
Nobody's gonna care.
Logan is
Kick her down. Let's go,
Logan
guys.
has very strong opinions on this topic.
We don't have an Autobahn in this country, and it's disgraceful. Okay.
Yes, we do. We have it out in Montana.
about
Just
to
don't
say, you
get
go to
caught, because
Montana.
you can go for miles and see nobody.
That's the problem, though. Is we should have a highway system where we can go as fast as we want, just like the Europeans have, where you have
Okay.
to have a special license to get on it and such.
So let me clue you in
You
there.
got super trains.
So once we do this autonomous, the autonomous was speeding, not you. So therefore, you can do the Autobahn.
But what if
It'd be
they
really hard to
say,
write a
okay,
sticker.
the autonomous can't go over the speed limit, just like a regular person?
But again, where's the speed limit? If you get on the right track, you're on an Autobahn, you would be able to hit her down and get going.
I don't think Logan wants to wait.
Now, here's the one thing too you got to think about is, even if you're bringing more power, you're using more power. That means you have less distance you can go with those batteries, right?
Debatable. Because if you're going faster
At a consistent
at a
pace,
consistent
you get
pace,
more charge from.
boom, bada bing.
'Cause it
right?
charges
Same
your
thing with a
batteries.
gas-powered car. Like the faster you go, you could argue you're burning more fuel, but as long as you get into a higher gear and drop the RPMs, you're moving faster and being more efficient.
I guess I'd have to see the racial degree or disagree with that.
I mean, also, like, when you're in a car, when you're in your car, it charges your battery. That's how it works. In an electric
Yeah, but
car,
the
it
faster
does
you
the
go in a
same
car,
thing.
it doesn't really matter because it's all dependent on the RPM of the engine.
Well, I think they're going to be coming up with, on the hubs. So just think about this. If you could build in the hubs, the wheels are turning, right? They're on the ground. They could be generators in the hubs that would generate those batteries when you're going down the road, so you wouldn't need as much. And how is that going to work? Well, there's a lot of ways that you can take coils and magnets and lay them in and start turning them just like an alternator and in a wheel, and it wouldn't do that much draw where it would pull that juice back in and put it in battery. I've been thinking about that.
Yeah, we gotta.
think a
It's
lot of-
basically the concept of perpetual motion.
I think
But
Tesla has something like that already. A little
Oh,
bit,
they've been thinking about it too, huh?
where
yeah,
when
you slow
they're-
down, it does it. That's
Yeah.
what Tesla's doing.
That's in their braking,
Yeah, and the braking.
because you're not accelerating, you're not taking
It's
from
just
it. When you're
drawing.
accelerating, they don't want to draw from it.
I keep thinking I saw a meme where there's an older style. I keep trying not to put in any company names anywhere. There's an older style of the electric vehicle that would have a battery. Screw it. When Chevy came out with a Volt at first, it doesn't recharge itself. And I saw people would make adapters, which were very rudimentary, that they would put a sprocket on their wheel, and then a drive chain that would go to basically come back to a generator that would regenerate into the batteries, because those vehicles wouldn't do it themselves.
Yeah.
Well,
Because
that was
at the
just the
beginning
poor
of it.
design.
Well, it was at the beginning of everything, kind
And
of.
at the
So,
end
I
of the day,
mean,
you're always losing energy though, because
Yeah, I mean, you're not
neither
gonna-
created nor destroyed, so you're always gonna have to.
You're always gonna be losing. But
Yeah,
it
but
just makes it less.
less loss,
Mhm.
because eventually you're gonna run out, even if it's getting
Well-
75% of the power back to the batteries. You're
Now,
still losing 25%.
but
yeah.
it looked like nuclear fusion, though.
I am all for putting nuclear reactors in cars. I just want to throw that out there right now.
They're very well
Okay.
housed. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways
Just
to
the
look
waste.
we might as well just see if we
And
can
I mean, the more
anti-battery.
practical application would be in equipment and
Way
things like
a
that.
lot.
Or they even got them in ships these days too. That
Yeah, they're nuclear.
yeah, and that's where I see the state of all of these industries going in the far distant future. Is you'll have a tiny little box that's barricaded 1,000 different times, and it's a nuclear reactor, and that's what's powering you, and then you don't even have to worry about recharging your nuclear powered.
I think that Tesla was talking about that before, that they were going to build boxes that you could actually move in and you could set up camp for the Army or Navy or whoever in a site in 2 days or a day versus weeks. And they could do it by having a nuclear reactor that they take with them and set it right up, and they got all their power.
And it started generating power.
Everything right there. And they're talking about that, taking it to Mars as well. So I think that when you look at it, I think a vehicle, you know, if you had a cylinder this big that would do, you know, run for 8 years and, you know, and it was nuclear, I mean, how good would that be? You know, that'd be amazing. You know,
That would be great fuel mileage.
well,
Last time you filled up a decade ago. I'm waiting.
right?
All right, we're running out of time here.
Okay.
So let's talk about the big hitters on the auction this last.
Oh, on the last
yesterday.
auction we had.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we've had some really good ones. I tell you the truth, I was talking to a gentleman today. It was on a 06 ASV. It was an RC85, and that's a skid loader type unit, you know, on tracks.
Mhm.
And I kind of told him, I says, what kind of money were you kind of hoping for? And he says, well, you know, I'd like to see, you know, somewhere in the low 20s, you know what I mean, out of it. And I always ask the guys just to see where their pulse is on them, you know, not saying they're going to put anything on or bid, you know what I mean, that kind of a deal. And I told him, I said, yeah, I said, you should be seeing somewhere around 24 on that unit. You know, that's where it should be. Well, it ended up bringing $31,500. The guy was like, great, you know. So it was really good. I have some other ones that basically the guys, 950G that we had on the auction. Well, that 950G was a 06 model, and it had like 13,600 hours on it, and kind of told him it was going to be in the low 30s on it. Well, I was kind of wrong. She brought $55,000.
It's good to be wrong and high.
Yeah,
and low.
yeah, a little wrong on that one. Had another one. I had a 1984 950B. This thing was actually sold off-site again, just like this other one. And I said, you know, those units there were a $15,000 to $18,000 unit. You know, it's a 1984 model. You know, and it ended up bringing $31,500. The foreign market kind of likes these though.
I was about to say, was that sold?
And that actually was probably half reasonable in the foreign market.
Is that where
so-
it's sold at?
Pardon?
Sold overseas?
Yeah, I mean that, you know, that's exactly. So, and also we had some other ones that, you know, that that kind of hit the mark here that I thought were kind of cool. Was there's a D6N, it was a 04 model. This one was up offsite, of course, too. 13,000 hours on it. And we told them that it would be in the mid 30s as well, because, you know, hours and, you know, repairs and blah, blah, blah. It ended up bringing $54,500.
It's good money.
So we made some of our sellers really some good money. We've had some good sellers in the underground world. We had a 2015 Vermeer. It was a D24 by 40 Series 2, and this thing here should have been somewhere around a $60,000 deal, and it brought $77,000. So there was some good jargon going on there. We had a 2013 Ditch Witch that was a RT80 quad track, and we told them that was going to bring somewhere around 50. It ended up bringing 52.5. So, you know, we typically can hit the market on them and everything else, but, you know, this market's kind of volatile when it comes to some of that stuff, because, you know, you don't know, because somebody else says, you know, I need it tomorrow, and next guy says, I need it too. So guess what happens to the market then?
They both all need it now that it's going up. Supply and demand.
Competition starts.
Competition starts. So I mean, you know, with that being said, you know, we've had with even the auction of semis and semi trailers and loaders and dozers and you know, pickups and trailers. It's been crazy. You know, we get new attachments in here, and typically last year at this time, those attachments on the grapples, they're brand new, you know, but some come from across. They make them over in China, and they build them and they bring them here and sell them. And also we have some that are from the United States that come in here as well. And typically those are probably $1,100 to $1,200 grapples, you know, here on the auction. And we averaged, I believe it was right at $1,600 a grapple. So but irons went up a little bit too. But it's been
Weren't
good.
lying when you said the demand's high.
Yeah, I mean the demand's there. I mean, we know the market's there, but the demand's there as well. So I mean, if like when you're saying that, how do you think you're going to do in the auction market when we go to autonomous or electric vehicles and stuff? I don't think it's going to really affect the auction or the retail sales part of it as much as it is going to affect people's change and what they need to do to move towards that.
Alrighty.
About everything that we wanted to talk about. So
Now, where
go ahead and
can-
send us away, right?
Where can they bid if they want to go to an auction?
Well, if they want to go to an auction, they want to do a heavy equipment truck trailer auction, they can go to www.iraymn.com. That's iraymn.com. There's a lot of ways to get there, and just Google it or put it right in your browser. But at the same time, I want to thank you guys for coming out here today and having this little podcast. And we're going to be doing more in the future, right? And again, my name is Ray Henry.
Hold on. Where can they
Oh.
where can they catch the live stream?
Oh, golly. They can go right to Facebook for the live stream, right?
Yep.
If we go to Facebook for the live stream, just go to IRAY Auctions or IRAY Companies, and you can go for the live stream. You can watch the auction live all through the day if you like. Turn it on your phone and let it play and just put it in your pocket. You can listen to the auctioneers. It's kind of like a song because we're all kind of singing, It's a cool deal.
These beautiful hats right here.
We got all kinds of stuff we give away to our customers, all kinds of hats and of all shapes, all sizes. If you're kind of a winter bird, we get you a winter hat. It's incognito.
You're stressed out, you get
If you're a hunter, you can go hunting hat. We got those too. So we hand them out. We don't sell them. If you call in and say, hey, can I get one? Well, we're going to ask you if you want to be a part of a buying team or something like that to do that. But, we do appreciate people. We're going to have some different ways of giving you some giveaways as well. So, but it's all good.
That's everything.
That's a dozer. So again, Ray Henry from IRAY Companies and
Evan, send us away.